Hi, and welcome back to the Hippie Martha Hormone Hour. I'm Ashley, your host, and today I'm sitting down again with Kenzie Jo for what feels less like an interview and more like two big sisters at the kitchen table talking about the real everyday pieces of hormonal health. Kenzie Jo is both a fitness instructor and a fertility awareness educator who teaches in what she calls the cave woman style, grounded, instinctual, and deeply respectful of the female body. In this conversation, we're diving into food, movement, and fertility awareness in a way that's practical instead of perfect. We'll talk about protein and fiber goals, blood sugar and how it shapes the menstrual cycle, and even the big topics so many of you asked about how food fear can create just as much stress in the body as food itself, and more. I'll share how I've changed my perspective to look at food as fuel rather than things we shouldn't have. We'll explore both birth control and the cycle again, and why tracking ovulation matters for overall health, and how Kenzie's symptohormonal approach differs a little bit from the symptothermal method that I teach. This episode is for the cave sister who loves food, wants to understand balanced nutritional eating, and for anyone overwhelmed by the fitness and nutrition culture, for those wanting a deeper, more human understanding of the female cycle without the pressure to do it all perfectly. So grab a cozy drink and settle in for a real conversation about nourishing our bodies, supporting our cycles, and finding habits that actually fit real life. All right, we're back. Thank you so much, Kenzie, for being here. I'm really excited because, as I told you earlier, your podcast episode, the last one that we did together, was really popular. You're
Yay,
just,
thank you
I
for
feel
having
like
me
I'm
back.
hanging out with the popular girl.
Oh, no, don't flatter me. Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. So, as always, we start with a cycle day check-in. Would you like to kind of just check in and see how you're feeling? Tell people just where you're at in your cycle?
Yeah, so today is cycle day 14, and I've had quite a bit of cervical mucus the last week or so, but it's been kind of off and on. I'm also under the weather. So I feel like my body's kind of struggling to ovulate this go round. Am I ovulating? Am I not? I don't know. Trying to figure it out. We'll know after my LH shows up after my BBT spikes. I need to wait for a couple of other things, but yeah, I should be feeling good.
I feel that so much. I'm on cycle day 12, so we're
Okay.
really close.
Well, yeah, I definitely feel like in the follicular phase, if I'm feeling under the weather and I feel like it's not a super great follicular phase, I'm like, well, wait for the luteal phase. Like
Yep.
if my follicular phase this cycle sucks, my luteal phase is probably going to follow in the same. And there's of course things that I can do to make that better, but it just feels kind of disheartening.
Absolutely. As I said, in the introduction, a lot of people were really interested in learning more about food and habits to kind of help with hormones. And I know you probably work with that a lot, especially with your clients. Do you want to just kind of share about, what it means to have just kind of a balanced diet per se, and like how that can help anchor our blood sugar and muscle development, ovulation, all of that?
Yeah. So the first thing I always like to tell people is don't strive too much for perfection, right? Like there's always going to be a time where you're going to go out to eat and they're not going to have your perfectly clean option. So just don't stress about your food as much as you can help it. That's the first thing. I try to live by, like, I know everybody says no rules and I say no diets. And my only rule that I try to live by that I remember is 80/20. And that's less to say I must eat healthy 80% of the time, but to remind myself that 20% of the time I'm allowed to eat the cake at the restaurant and not worry about if there's soybean oil or whatever in it. So that's the first thing. Don't stress. Let yourself eat for pleasure 20% of the time, 10 to 20% of the time, and then eat to fuel yourself the other 80% of the time. And then part of that also is fuel yourself with the food. Know that food is medicine. So eat to provide your body the nutrients that it needs, being fat, protein, fiber, and then a variety of different micronutrients as well. So understanding the split of your macros, that's big talk in the health and wellness community.
I get a lot of people who are like, I don't even know what a macro is. I don't know how do I even start tracking my macros? Do you want to just kind of give some information on like what a macro is and how, like, where's a good place to start?
Yeah. So the big three are protein, fat, and carbs. Protein is going to be what I encourage people to start with. That's going to be meats, mostly dairy, cheese. I really like animal source proteins. I know that I'm not the person to ask if you're a vegan or a vegetarian.
Same.
There are better coaches out there that will be able to give you that information. I primarily focus on eating enough, also like whole sources of protein. So trying not to fill all of my proteins with processed packaged foods, but protein and then fat, you're going to have your oils, butter, nuts. There's lots of things that are high in healthy fat, coconut oil, olive oil, explaining the different macros.
Sure.
So you've got the big three, proteins, carbs, fats. What I want everybody to worry about is understanding that you need every single one of those macronutrients and then being able to identify them and put the right proportions of them on your plate. So everybody talks about protein, 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 and that's because I would say that is the hardest one to hit. You should be
Mhm.
having the most amount of protein and then filling the rest of your diet with whatever your preferred split of fats and carbohydrates is. But people tend to demonize one of those two, fats and carbs. I would say don't demonize either one of them. Try to have a good split the rest of your calories. Figure out, use a TDEE calculator, figure out what your calories are, figure out how much protein you need, and then fill the rest of your caloric need with the other two macros. But essentially, a macro is just how your body breaks down the energy that is in that food. So protein, fat, carbs, they're all going to hit your body a different way. Your body's going to break them down differently. They're going to cause different releases of like glucose and different releases of insulin in your body. And understanding how to pair them together and how to balance them is going to make the difference in how your body thrives afterwards, whether your glucose spikes, blood sugar spikes like crazy, or if it remains balanced and if you feel energized or sluggish.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you are undernourishing yourself where you're not getting enough macros, that can definitely make a huge impact on so much of the body. Whether that,
Yeah.
even if you're trying to lose weight, like you really need to get all of those in order to kind of sustain your body's function. So whether that's hormones, metabolically, gut health, like all of those things just to stay steady and feel healthy. Personally, when I think of macros, I like to I know the government food plate is not the best way to look at it, but I just like to look at my plate. Do I have protein on there? Do I have a fat? Do I have a fiber? Do I have a carbohydrate? And is it on my plate in during that setting? Okay, meet the criteria. And I'm a recovering like anorexic person, and so I have a lot of struggles with measuring, weighing. I get really obsessive about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So if you can just like look at food, like I'm having some berries and that has some vitamin C and some fiber in it, right?
Yeah. How is this thing fueling my body? How is it contributing to the health and vitality of my body? The way that all food, fitness, like healthy lifestyle choices, what I tell my clients is you're doing this because you love yourself.
Mhm.
You have to be like striving to be healthy because you love yourself. If it's not anchored in loving yourself, loving your body is the home of, I believe, your soul. For some people, it might be your mind. And, taking care of it is honoring yourself, your family, God, for me particularly, maybe not everybody. But so you want to be doing that out of love. So I love my body. I'm going to put something in it that's going to fuel it. And
Yeah,
I'm not going to try to pick it apart. I'm not going to hate myself for eating something. So looking at it as what is this doing for me? Because it is fuel. It is the thing that's going to determine whether or not you're healthy or not is how you're eating really. I mean, everybody wants to say, oh, the gym. People ask me, how do I get fit? How do I get fit? And then, I'm a personal trainer, so don't let everybody hear me say this, but you're not going to get fit by going to the gym 3 times a week alone if your diet doesn't support you. You're not going to see any progress in the gym. You're not going to build any muscle if your body doesn't have the building blocks that it needs.
exactly. What they say, a six pack comes from the food you're eating, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, abs are
it,
built in the kitchen.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. We're on the struggle bus today and we shouldn't be. That's the thing. Like I'm like, what the
I
heck?
know. I
Okay.
have so many people tell me they're like, "Oh, I don't feel like I get the follicular phase high all the time." You're not meant to all the time. Like,
Right.
not going to be every single cycle.
Well, let's start there. Like, let's talk about that follicular phase and how you don't always feel good during it, right? Like it can be a normal for some people, but I think understanding that not everyone is the same during that
Yeah,
phase.
not everyone is the same. Not everybody's lifestyle is the same. Your life is going to have peaks and valleys and ups and downs. And there's going to be times where, I'm planning a wedding and quitting my job and a bunch of other things all in the same week. And it happens to be my follicular phase, but the estrogen doesn't necessarily trump how much stress I have in my life right now. So
Right.
I'm better fit to handle it than I would be if I was imbalanced and in my luteal phase right before
Yeah.
my period. Like, thank goodness this is landing on ovulation. But yeah, you don't always feel like you're walking on sunshine every single ovulatory phase, like people
Yes.
that you would be.
Let's chat about what happens hormonally when women consistently undereat and don't get enough food or nutrition in their body.
Yeah. Well, I would say the first thing is your body starts to think, okay, well, why are we not getting everything that we need? If you don't have everything that you need or your resources limited, so then your body starts going into this thought process of, I have limited resources, let me start prioritizing and allocating funds per se to the places that are going to need it the most. And your reproductive system is not where it's needed most. So those hormones start to suffer. They start to get lower and lower and lower. I don't know if it was between the last podcast and this podcast, but I actually had a client come to me and say, why is this happening? Like, why is my period lighter? Why am I having a hard time identifying my ovulation? What's going on? And she's not under eating altogether, but she is under eating fat. And so,
Mhm.
fat is a precursor for a lot of hormones. It's the building block for your body to make those hormones. So you start under eating it, your body doesn't have the nutrients and the building blocks to build the hormones, and it starts putting the resources it has into maintaining, I don't know, your heart and your blood and the things that keep you functioning on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis that aren't necessarily thriving, right? If your body's thriving, then everything's functioning perfectly, or not perfectly, but well. Yeah. So your body starts to go into overdrive, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse until you lose your cycle, or, in the case of eating disorders, your nails get thin, your bones get thin, you can't build muscle, your hair starts falling out, you get dull looking.
Mhm.
I've also had not anorexia, but I had the health focus. I'm blanking right now on what it's called, but where you only eat healthy food. And it's
Orthorexia?
yes, yes. I had orthorexia for a
Mhm.
very long time where I would turn my nose up and rather not eat than eat fast food or put something that I perceived to be unhealthy in my body. But then that actually made everything way worse
Mhm.
because I wasn't eating enough. So yeah, and that just made me look really, really dull. And I know it can make you feel really weak and exhausted, and your body just starts to go into hibernation until you start putting fuel back in.
Absolutely. In my last podcast that I actually talked about how ovulation is the life force. And so if you're not ovulating, you're not getting enough to make that life force happen or ovulation to happen where that egg is released because the egg is the largest cell in the body. And so when you don't have enough energy to feed that mitochondria, it really shows. It shows in all aspects of our life. And the fact that your client saw it on her chart, like that shows, I mean, those are things that we can pick up and then we can say, this is what we need to add back in, right?
Mm-hmm.
As like a health coach, as a fertility awareness educator, like we can see those things on charts and kind of help you get things back up and running.
Yeah. I mean, I knew before she even told
Yeah.
me that she was dieting to lose weight. As soon as I saw, because I mean, it's one of my like closest friends. She was one of the very first people that I taught. So she's been tracking her cycle consistently for 3 or 4 years, and I've helped her review her charts multiple times. And I saw it, I looked at it, I saw the multiple different patches of cervical fluid. It was like not abundant. It was very, very scant, like hardly anything that she was seeing there. And then I saw her periods go from consistently like 6 days to 5 days to 3 days. And then it was lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And I was like, huh, so your estrogen is plummeting.
Mhm. Yeah.
Why? What's the most common reason that a woman's estrogen starts plummeting like that? Well, she's probably trying to lose weight and she's
Yeah.
probably not doing it in a sustainable, consistent way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I actually had a client too who was postpartum and wanted to lose that postpartum weight.
Mhm.
And she started working out. She lost the weight, but she had terrible periods, lots of cramping. They were actually heavier. So what had happened is she was actually having longer cycles. And so lots of
Mhm.
estrogen. So it was like almost like
Yeah.
this over estrogen. So there's many different variables and ways
Yeah.
that it can
Yeah.
look like. A lot of times it's just simple. Let's start eating some more fats. Like let's get some
Yeah.
healthy carbohydrates in there and
Hmm.
and yeah, things resolve a lot faster when you catch them. So,
Do you see women who don't eat enough fiber have
oh
too much
yes.
estrogen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it where they have lots of cervical fluid. And so, or shorter luteal phases, you see that progesterone estrogen imbalance.
Yeah.
And yeah, it shows up really, really fast. And usually food is the first thing I go to. Are you balancing your blood sugar? What types of food are you eating? Have you had any changes? And then it's sleep.
Yeah.
It's all the basics.
Yeah.
And
Eating, sleeping, moving your body. People hate to hear it. People hate to
they
hear
hate
it.
it. I'm like,
It's the
I
truth
can
though.
solve a lot of your problems just if you do the basics. And they're like, but that takes
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you do need to eat multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Like
I know.
I tell this to, my fiance owns a meal prep company, so I have it better than most. There is always
Nice.
fresh cooked food in the fridge, and it's a meal prep company, so it's like a quart of cubed steak. And so I just have to put it on. I'm super blessed to be where I'm at, like knowing how to portion all of these things and then having all of the resources at my disposal. But I tell him all the time because he's like, oh, like, what do you like? What do you like? What do you like? And I do like food, but if I never had to eat again and I never had to worry about it again, I would choose that.
Yeah.
Like, you would really give up food? And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I don't like I trust me when I tell you I understand how stressful it is to try to eat healthy. I understand how stressful it is to try to deal with all of those things. I'm blessed now. I wasn't before I was with him. So much so that I was having to deal with it and like figure it out on my own. But yeah, I would never eat again because it is stressful.
On the other hand, I love cooking. I don't know if you follow my stories and stuff, but I
Oh, I
am
do.
constantly posting food and it doesn't always look pretty, but oh my gosh, it tastes so good. And I have kind of found that that's where my outlet is in kind of not only understanding food, but also making it taste good and releasing that fear around food. I've grown up with food fear from
Mm,
obviously the time I was born. I feel like my mom, my mother-in-law, like they still have everyone in my family still has a lot of that. So
yeah.
if you can just like do something that you enjoy, if you enjoy meal prepping or if you enjoy cooking or even if you don't enjoy it, like try to. That can be really helpful. If you get good recipes, it
Yeah.
can reduce that stress around it. This is when we change that whole thought process of this is just going to nourish my body and what I need in the moment, that can really change like the way we show up around food and in your physiological process, mind process of how you see food and how to nourish your body, even if it might not be like you said, fast food or whatever. It's gonna make a turd. That's like the biggest. I
Yeah.
say that all the
Yeah.
time. It's gonna make a turd, and it's better than not eating at all. So
For sure. For
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I mean our brains literally run on glucose. Like your brain to function, you need to put food in your body.
it's like that meme with what's his name? He's like your brain runs on glucose.
Ryan Gosling?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah, from it's from Fall Guy.
yes.
That movie was so funny. Yeah. Yes.
It's just listen to him. Listen to Ryan
Yeah,
Gosling.
it's true.
So for me, I notice as I get older, fiber
Hmm.
has become more important in stabilizing my blood sugar.
Hmm.
And just all the things like when you get older. I'm in my 40s, so like, you need to be pooping daily. You need
Everybody
to
needs to poop
fiber
every
is really
day.
good at, estrogen metabolism. So,
Hmm.
and gut health and all of the things. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
The way I explain that to people is fiber is like the broom of the gut. it goes in and it binds and grabs to things that you don't want in your gut. So you have two different exit pathways, right? Nobody really wants to talk about our bathroom activities, but you poop and you pee, right? There's solid option and there's the liquid option. The solid option is much more effective, it's much more efficient, and you're going to be able to get a lot more out. If your body has to convert those toxins from a solid form into a liquid form so that it can go the urine pathway, it's going to take a lot more work on your body. So the way to make things bind in a solid way is to eat fiber because fiber is solid, it grabs toxins, it binds to toxins so that they can be excreted through the solid pathway.
Yeah.
Much more effective.
And making sure that you're getting enough water because fiber can bind you up. Drinking enough water, getting enough like fruits and vegetables, you know.
I've known people to be impacted with multiple pounds and pounds and pounds
Yeah.
of poop.
Yes. I know. It's crazy. Once again, it's a basic thing
Yeah.
that a lot of people have struggle with.
Dad always told me his morning poop was the most important, and I just thought that that was like a man thing, but it's a person, it's a
It's a,
human
yeah,
thing.
it's,
Your morning poop is important.
it is. Well, and if you follow like the Chinese cycle, like
Mhm.
pooping and peeing first thing in the morning it follows like on the Chinese time clock or whatever. And it's really good just to get our
Yeah.
body detoxes while we sleep. And so to get all that
Mhm.
out, it's really important.
Well, I don't think people realize too, some people get up so fast in the morning, they rush out the door and they don't give their body time to poop in the morning and kind of give yourself that moment. But what you don't realize is your colon and your gut are permeable membranes. And if you have poop sitting in your colon and it's full of all these toxins and estrogen, those things are leaching back into your bloodstream. Let yourself poop, get
Yeah.
it out there before it
Squat.
starts. Do what you need to do. Do some jumps, do some squats. My cousin showed me this like abdominal massage that you can do, hitting your like four finger lengths below your belly button, massaging that area. It's called like your
Yeah.
poop button. My cousin showed me that, and it's the best thing ever.
It is. It's great. I know. I had Arvigo therapy done. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So it's called Arvigo Mayan abdominal massage, and they
Okay.
teach you how to massage and to work on that ileocecal valve
Yeah.
and to just kind of release things. But it also can help get like the uterus in position, the bladder in position, things like
Oh,
that.
that's
It's
so
really cool.
cool. Yeah,
So you
that's
should
so
look to
cool.
see if there's anyone in your area. But yeah, that can be really, really helpful. I also feel like we tense our stomachs so much. If you do abdominal breathing, that helps to massage the liver, the gut, the diaphragm, like all of the things. And so if
Yeah.
you're, there's so many different modalities that you can do to just kind of help with digestion. But for sure, fiber is a great goal.
Oh yeah. Get
What
your
do you
fiber
usually
people.
tell people for a fiber goal to reach? Like how
I'd say
much?
between 20 and 30 grams a day. That's a good goal. If you hit 20 and 30 gram, like 20 to 30 grams, somewhere in that range every single day, see how you feel, see how you're pooping. After you have consistently done that for a little bit, then we can reevaluate. But if you're not getting 20 grams a day, bare minimum, start getting it.
And fiber looks like fruits, veggies, whole grains,
Yeah.
quinoa. What else? Chia seeds. Like
Yep.
all those have fiber in
Yep.
them.
Admittedly, I don't always focus on those things if I am having like a struggle. So I have a fiber supplement like psyllium husk
Hmm.
chia seed thing that I just scoop it and stir it around and chug it as fast as I can. I'm
Yeah.
much more of a like grit and bear it, get what I need to get type of person. Like if I'm especially, you know, I do have days where I'll go on like a family trip and I will drink alcohol. Having fiber before you drink alcohol is
Yes.
so much, it's so important. That's like my ritual. I have a fiber supplement, I have a B complex supplement, and then I'm allow myself to go enjoy a couple drinks if I want to. But I don't always want to eat a bunch right before all of that. So I drink my fiber supplement to make sure that I get it in for that right at the beginning of the day. And then I don't
Yes.
have to worry about what I'm eating for the rest of the day.
I also tell people too, if they want to drink, make sure you are having some type of fat or protein to help with
Oh
like
yeah.
metabolism because yeah, getting getting shitty is, I mean, it can really, make you not feel very well.
For sure. I went to celebrate my cousin's college graduation and I was like, we're gonna probably drink a lot today. So I went to the grocery store beforehand. I bought a pack of chopsticks and I was wearing like a big trench coat and I put just chopsticks in the pockets of my coat. And I took a fiber supplement. I took my B supplement. I started drinking water first thing. I carried my water bottle around with me the whole time. All these college kids were probably like, why is this girl pulling a chopstick out in her like in the middle of the bar? It's like everything's going and I'm sitting in the corner eating a chopstick. Like, but my blood sugar was balanced and I didn't.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, that actually leads me back to I get a lot of people who are like, I am not hungry first thing in the morning. I know you've
Yeah.
done something about
Yes.
this. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I struggle with not being hungry first thing in the morning too. And what I'll say is two things. If you really, really don't want to eat something solid, drink it. I'm a beverage girly through and through. I drink a cup of bone broth and a cup of milk, bare minimum. If nothing else, I'm having some milk and I'm having some bone broth.
Yeah.
That gets me a good amount of protein, a good amount of fat, a little bit of carbs with the milk. I'm hitting all my bases and I don't have to chew anything,
Yeah.
and that makes me feel good about it. You can also, the second thing is train your stomach. If you're never eating in the morning, your stomach is never going to be hungry. You're never going to be ready. Your body learns the rhythm that you
Hmm.
give it when you're sleeping, when you're eating. So if you want to be somebody who is eating first thing in the morning and that's the only time that you can have a meal, you can start training yourself, eat something small, and then try to incrementally increase it over time.
It's a big red flag when people come to me and are like, I'm not hungry first thing in the morning. That tells me metabolism is not good. Their
Yeah.
metabolic rate is probably not good. So, like,
Yeah.
trying to get something, whether it's the broth and milk, like within an
Yeah.
hour of waking, can be huge. And that's starting that metabolism. It's signifying, okay, my body's waking up. Here we go. Like it's
Yeah.
time to go.
When I was healing from my eating disorder, I wasn't hungry. I also talked about this a little bit on my quitting addiction page, but I used to be really addicted to weed all the time, and that really messes with your
Hmm.
hormones and messes with your hunger hormones a lot. So when I stopped doing that, I was never hungry, but I'll say, giving myself a rhythm, forcing myself to eat 3 to 5 times a day, really balancing my blood sugar, focusing on that. And then when I really saw my appetite increase is when I upped my physical activity, lifting a lot.
Hmm.
And then, just over time, I started waking up hungry. Sometimes where I would wake up so hungry that my stomach hurt, and I was like, oh goodness, I really need my bone
Yes.
broth right now. So the
And
more routine you give yourself.
I couldn't agree with you more. Understanding that everything is connected. So, like if you're going to bed late, if you
Yeah,
are, if you have like that wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, typically like that's a high cortisol things.
cortisol.
Working with your stress, working with your blood sugar, those are all big things,
Yep.
that we see. Also comes up on a chart. Everything.
Yep.
A lot of these things come up on a cycle chart. Getting into the cycle chart, a lot of your listeners wanted, I call them your listeners because they were definitely there for you.
Aw.
They loved you. They wanted us to talk a little bit about birth control versus an true ovulatory cycle,
Yeah.
kind of coming off of contraception, relearning your body, and what all of that looks like, especially like if they were to work with you or myself.
Yeah. So, starting with what does birth control do to your cycle? The biggest question I feel like I get is how do I track my cycle on birth control? And I really hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you're on birth control, you can't really track your cycle the way that I talk about it. There are nuances to birth control. People want me to explain every single different type of birth control. I'm not your go-to person for that. If you want to know the
Mhm.
nuances of what every single birth control drug does to your body, what I can tell you is it doesn't matter which one it is going to affect your natural cycle. You're not going to have a natural cycle the way that I speak about it. You're not going to be able to track it the way that I speak about it. And that's just because it's messing with the rhythm that your body naturally sets that we call the cycle that all revolves around ovulation and, coming to fertility, and not in the sense of like, getting pregnant and having a baby, but coming to fertility in the sense of your body is thriving enough that you could conceive, because ovulation is a vital sign of health and it all centers around, do you ovulate? Is your ovulation optimal? Are your hormones functioning in the symphony that goes on?
Hmm.
You know, it's a domino effect, it's a symphony, it's all these things working in tandem at once to lead to this big event for this one goal, seemingly, but you know,
Yeah.
estrogen, progesterone do other things. So anyway, if you're on
Yeah.
birth control, you don't have a cycle really,
Right.
and can't help you track it because it's not
Yeah.
natural.
I have helped people track if you have a copper IUD.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different because you're still ovulating. It's just creating like a nasty
Yeah.
environment for sperm, basically.
I was speaking more so on like
But
hormonal
yeah,
based birth control methods. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so definitely. And then coming off of that contraception, so there's not a whole lot of information stating that it's causing infertility. But what
Mhm.
contraception does do is it affects all the other systems in our body that we need for ovulating and vital
Yeah.
signs. And that's gut health, that's thyroid, that's, I'm trying to think, our adrenals. It affects the
Mhm.
brain. It affects so many things. So if you're on contraception, contraception is great, but also other ways. Sometimes that's not for everyone. It definitely, contraception can be tough, just getting it out of your cycle and out of your body. And then, because a lot of times people who come off of hormonal contraception will have, it's almost like I call it PCOS. Basically, you have a hard time regaining that ovulation back sometimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You turn off those systems and essentially, you know, your body has a built-in system where it's commanding everything. You have the commanding officer in your brain that's making all of these decisions, and then you hijack it and say, "Hey, go to sleep. We're going to make all the decisions with all of these synthetic hormones." And your body unlearns how to do those things effectively. And so you have to relearn all of it. And, you know, it depletes a lot of your resources. And so your body just has to recover from that. So
Hmm.
there's a recovery period. And I know some people go through post-birth control syndrome where you have very extreme cycle, like PMS type symptoms,
Hmm.
and you have a hard time, kind of like you're mentioning, hard time ovulating, where it takes, you know, really long cycles, multiple patches of cervical fluid, having a hard time identifying your cervical fluid. It does so much to
Yeah.
your cycle because it hijacks it, it overrides it, it takes it over, shuts it down, and then your body has to relearn all of those things.
I also see teenagers who have gone on it when that HPO axis, the hypopituitary, oh my gosh,
But you got it. Hypothalamic pituitary ovarian
pituitary
axis.
ovarian
Yeah,
axis. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
sorry, I totally like blinked out.
It's
The
one of those
HPO
things.
axis is very juvenile. And so when they go on hormones, it
Mhm.
really can delay those even longer
Mhm.
as those teens grow into adults. And then once they get off of birth control and maybe want to start a family, can kind of, that's where a lot of problems can happen. Let's just talk about a real period versus a breakthrough bleed.
Yes. So the big difference between a real period and any other bleed is a real period is the result of ovulation. In simplest terms, a real period comes from the buildup of your estrogen causing the buildup of your lining. You have ovulation, you have the true luteal phase. Everything works the way that it needs to, but ovulation is the determining factor because ovulation is the star of the show.
Yep. So that's why it's so important to track your ovulation, which
Yeah.
there are ways to track your ovulation. Do you want to talk about the way that you track your ovulation or like that you
Yes.
teach?
Yes. So I got certified through the FEM Foundation. That's fertility education and medical management. And the method that they teach is the symptohormonal method. So sympto in terms of fertility awareness method means the symptoms, i.e. cervical fluid, and then hormonal, meaning luteinizing hormone testing. So I do those two things as my primary biomarkers. I'm tracking my cervical fluid every single day. When I start seeing estrogenic cervical fluid, I start tracking for luteinizing hormone. I know how to open and close my fertile window using just those two biomarkers. I also track my basal body temperature, which I know you do
Mhm.
with your symptothermal method. So if you want to
Yeah.
tell them about that.
Yes. So the symptothermal method is basically I use the Wells a symptothermal method. and sympto, meaning we do cervical fluid. I also teach cervical height and
Mhm.
opening. If people want to do it, they don't have to. And then we do basal body temperature. So, first thing in the morning, you wake up, you take your basal body temperature, which is right where when we wake up, our melatonin is turning off and our cortisol is turning on. And at that moment of time, right when we wake up, is our best time that you would take your basal body temperature. And you get like the current actual gauge of what your temperature is based off of your hormones. So, low temperatures typically signify estrogen is present, along with cervical fluid being present. And then high temperatures indicate, or a rising temperature indicates progesterone being present in the body. We open our fertile window with cervical fluid and we close it with cervical fluid and 3 out of 4 high temps after a raise and no cervical fluid is present. So there's 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 a lot of science and a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, there's no way I could learn that." It's really not difficult.
No, everybody seems to think that it is way more complicated and complex than it is. And, I keep getting comments about, oh, well, I couldn't do this with an irregular cycle, or I couldn't do this with a complicated cycle. And it isn't as straightforward, but you absolutely could.
Yeah,
Sure.
and I'm prime for that because one, I've had PCOS. I had
Mhm.
over 120-day cycle once and
Oh, good.
I charted it and it was really interesting and I was able to get a lot of good care during that time and care for myself because I knew what was happening. But I was having breakthrough
Yeah.
bleeds. So it looked like I was having regular periods when I actually wasn't. So that's why it's so important to actually confirm ovulation
Mhm.
retrospectively than to just assume that your period is a real period or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think I missed mentioning what a breakthrough bleed is when I
Yeah.
mentioned when we talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
So a lot of people ask, oh, well, what is a breakthrough bleed? A breakthrough bleed is when your body can no longer hold on to the uterine lining that is there. And so some of it has to shed off. Estrogen proliferates your uterine lining or grows the uterus and thickens your lining. If it gets too thick because you've been in the follicular phase for too long, your estrogen builds up to a certain point that makes your uterine lining too thick. And so it has to shed off a little bit. And that can happen when you're on the pill too because of the
Mhm.
synthetic hormones.
Yeah. Yeah. That the sugar pills are basically that withdrawal from hormones.
Yeah.
I also have seen people who will have really like congested pelvic floors and will see like a lot of like really dark, clotty black blood coming off of hormonal birth control
Mhm.
because their uterus just has not been in that cycle. And
Yeah.
so it can be kind of scary for some. So if you experience that, just know that it's probably just because you've been on hormones for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
As far as in-depth cycle, I know some people who really wanted to like go over the cycle. And so I think we can do that minimally. But for those who are listening, Kenzie and I, that's what we teach. And so it would be really important for you to take one of our courses. There are many different types of fertility awareness based methods. Like, I think at one point I counted like 45 that are
Oh, yeah.
known. So there's a lot out there. And that's why I wanted to kind of focus on um, symptohormonal versus symptothermal, or you can do both. But as far as getting in depth, I really would encourage you to reach out to one of us if you have questions or want to learn a specific method. I think you're going to be more consistent. I know in my courses, I teach you not to DIY fertility awareness just because you're at more risk for unintentional pregnancies and just not understanding as much as you would with an educator. So, but I know we talk a lot about follicular versus ovulation versus luteal. Do you want to go over? It is literally just 2 phases.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think people get really lost in the sauce of the way that you see it online with menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase, luteal phase. What do all of those things mean? And if you're looking at it from a purely like science, biological based lens, and you're not looking at all of the different symptoms that you have going on, it's really just the follicular phase and the luteal phase. And all that means is before ovulation and after ovulation. Before ovulation, when estrogen talks to brain body, that there's a lot of things that happen that change mentally, physically. Estrogen is dominant. Estrogen is influencing your brain, it's influencing your body, it's influencing the way that your tissues interact, it's influencing all of those things. And then after ovulation, that switches over to progesterone, and progesterone has its whole other list of things that it affects. So, one
Yeah.
more time. Before ovulation is the follicular phase, after ovulation is the luteal phase. How do you track your cycle? Well, you learn to track ovulation, you learn to identify ovulation, you learn to confirm it, and after that point, you're set. You can figure out if you're before ovulation or after ovulation, and it's that simple.
Yeah. And once you know ovulation, you know when your period's coming because the luteal phase doesn't really change in length, but the follicular phase tends to change in length more so than the luteal phase. So the luteal
Yeah.
phase typically is every, I don't know. For me, it's every like 12 days. Like I've gotten it up being midlife. I was at a 9-day luteal phase, which really sucked, but I have increased it, which has been really good. Your luteal phase doesn't vary as much as the follicular phase.
Yeah, it's built to be stable. It's built
Mhm.
to be consistent. Of course, people ask me, "Oh, well, mine changes." Well, if yours is changing every single cycle, that is a signal that potentially there's something wrong. It should stay pretty consistent. And as you go through life changes, it can adjust over time, which is why it's important to pay attention always. But the follicular phase is built to be variable. It's
Yeah,
built to adjust to your environment. Your body is determining whether it's safe or not to get pregnant, and it's going to choose the best time to get pregnant. That is the way it's designed.
yeah. And
It's going
things
to
that
vary.
can
Yeah.
affect that include sleep, if you're not nourishing your body enough, if you're sick. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, my cycle is so crazy this month. And it was because they were sick, right?
Yeah.
You have to look at these external factors too that can affect our cycles and say it's not safe to have a baby.
And I think something that's confusing too is people think, well, I wasn't stressed out. Did you travel? Did
Yeah.
you have a wedding? Did you have your mother-in-law come visit? Did you
Time,
have something? Yeah,
even
did
time
the time
change.
change? Like something that you may think of as exciting still can stress your body out. So anything outside of the normal is going to affect your body. And whether you register it as stress or not doesn't mean that it's not stressing your body out. Remember.
Love that. It's a great reminder. Um, all right. I think we hit on everything, didn't we?
I think so. Yeah,
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I am so thankful and grateful that you were able to share your wisdom yet again. And if you want to work with Kenzie or myself, please reach out. I will post her information and my information in the show notes. If until then, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
bye. Thank you.